What's going on, guys? This is Empty Box, and this is some more Red Orchestra 2. This time we're going to be inside the Russian T-34. Oh yeah. Now I'm not going to lie, I don't necessarily enjoy tank battles too terribly much in this game, in the sense that I think it's just this map, which is the only tank versus tank only map in the game right now, which I'm not sure if anybody's working on any modded maps, because obviously mods are a huge part of Red Orchestra 2, but the potential is definitely there, and I'll say right now, this is one of the most fun experiences I've had in a tank in a video game ever. This game right here it's just so immersive and just so difficult in its own right, because instead of, you know, just being in full control and being able to move around, you are very, very, very limited when you're using a tank in this game. And, you know, death is pretty swift if you get out of position, especially in the T-34, but I'll go into the tank versus tank comparisons a little bit later here. But, you know, it's difficult. You have to be very, very, very careful of what you're doing. It is hard to maneuver, it's hard to get around the map and everything. It is a challenge, but that challenge makes it so much fun, so rewarding, and just a great experience, to be perfectly honest. I definitely will be playing more of this map here, and maybe being a little bit more eager to hop into tanks, because you spawn into tanks in this game, you don't walk up to them and hop in. It's kind of different than most other games, which, you know, it is what it is. That's just how it works. First, I want to talk about popping the hatches. This is pretty obvious, not too terribly complicated. You know, when you're driving around, like you saw me earlier, when we're driving into the battle zone, obviously you spawn outside of the map and everything, and you're not going to get shot, you know, right off the bat. Go ahead, pop the hatches, maximum visibility, easier to see, no reason not to. When you start getting close to the war zone, if you need to pop your hatch, and I say if you need to, be very careful popping the hatch, because it can easily get you killed and cause you problems that you don't want. Because obviously you don't want to be tanking a crewman down, which is something that can happen in this game. Basically, if a tank shell or your guy's standing out there with his hatch open, being all like, "What's going on, guys?" He can get shot, then you're basically a man down, which just makes everything more complicated, because then you gotta switch to his position before you can actually use it, and it plays an animation that's really cool looking, actually, and adds to the immersion, but it takes a lot of time, and it's just, you don't want to go through it. So keep those hatches down. If you need to open them, try and restrain yourself 5 seconds at most. Do a quick 360 and just close it down. If you need a second look, go ahead, wait a couple seconds, pop up again, prairie dog it, and then get back down. It's real simple, self-explanatory. Use your periscope here. I don't make too good use of it in this game, but basically it's completely independent of the main gun, and actually to synchronize them, for lack of a better term, you basically just click the left mouse button and it'll bring the turret around to where you're pointing your periscope at, which I could have did right there, but instead I failed. But, you know, one of the most unique things about Red Orchestra 2, and the tanks particularly, they're done with such realism and, well, maybe not realism. I don't know if they're realistic. I'm pretty sure they're realistic, given that that was one of their main focuses. And, you know, this game is trying to be very realistic, but not quite to Arma-like levels, because obviously there's some issues there in terms of that type of realism in a video game, because sometimes it just doesn't work, but that's a different story. You know, the tank damage system is just amazing. It's amazingly difficult. It really requires wrapping your head around, you know, for lack of a better term, because sometimes you shoot a guy, you shoot a tank in one shot, and it just blows up, and it's just a ball of glory, and you're just like, yeah! When you're sitting there in your virtual tank, because you kind of like, yeah, you see that when a tank blows up in this game, it's just like a little bit of win. You know, you're just like, yeah! But especially when they're moving, that's just extra glory. But basically, tanks have armor, obviously, and where that armor is softest is obviously the bottom, the top, and the back. Usually, you're not going to be attacking a tank from the top. Usually, you're not going to be attacking from the bottom unless they're, cresting a hill and they've left their underbelly exposed, which is not a good idea. You got to be careful of that when you're driving a tank, especially in this game and more realistic tank action in other games. But the rear end is obviously the weak part. That's where the armor is softest. However, in this game, on top of the armor, you also have basically shell penetration. Basically what that means is your tank shell goes through their armor and it goes into the inside of the tank, and they actually went ahead and modeled the inside of the tank basically with the engine, transmission, the ammo storage, as well as the fuel tanks, which once your tank shell goes into the tank, and there's also the crew inside, of course, so you can basically penetrate their armor, and if you happen to have your shell go through a fuel tank and then go on to hit an their ammo storage, that tank is going to go boom. That's the most effective way, and usually what I find is you actually want to hit the tanks right in the middle, a little bit forward the middle, and a little bit lower than the belt line where the tracks meet. So right in between the big wheels and the small wheels, basically, is where you want your tank shell to obviously hit. And on both tanks, there's a pretty good probability of causing them to blow up in one shot from a closer range. Obviously, the longer range you have, the slower your shell is traveling when it impacts targets, which means less penetration, which basically means you're less likely to get that ball of glory in one shot. But, so you definitely want to aim for that mid-section from the side. Obviously, you want to have your front armor facing the enemy as much as you can. I'm not doing a very good job of it right here, but it's still working because there's just so many tanks and most of these guys don't know what to do, but that's what I'm here for. So you really need to not look at tanks as just what you see on the exterior, but rather what you see on the interior. And the same applies to when you're playing as the anti-tank soldier class and you're using the anti-tank rifle, which is so rewarding because honestly, when you shoot a tank in that one little spot where your bullet will end up going through their armor, penetrating, going through like a fuel tank or the ammo storage area, and it just goes boom, it's literally, again, a ball of glory. It's just like, yeah! It's like yelling Wolverines. I don't know, but the one way to tell if your tank shell did go through and penetrate, even if it doesn't necessarily blow up, but at least you did damage rather than just ricocheting off, is you'll see there's obviously just an explosion, and that's basically just a hit indicator, a good solid hit indicator. When you're in a tank, it'll be pretty obvious when you have eaten a shell and had it ricochet, or if you've had it basically blow up and kill half your people. But the tanks are not completely similar at all, and that's one of the brilliant things again about this. It's not like Battlefield where T-90 and the M1 Abrams are basically the same exact thing. There is a complete difference between the T-34 and the Panzer IV, which, originally when this game launched, the T-34 was completely non-competitive. However, now they're much more equal, to the point where I think the T-34 is finally showing itself as really the better tank, which is what it was in terms of, being usable at a level beyond what it really was in the real world. But, obviously the T-34 was the war-winning tank, essentially, at least in my opinion. I mean, the ability to turn out so many of these and, have a lighter weight tank that was more effective, more heavily armored than it actually was because of the sloped armor up front. That's obviously a crucial thing that plays out here in Red Orchestra 2. The T-34 is the faster tank. It's not the most powerful tank. It's not the more well-armored tank, although if you can keep the frontal armor pointed at the enemy, you're going to have a more armored tank than what you normally would have, and it's actually going to be fairly durable, but once you get to the sides and the rear, it's kind of shaky. Whereas the Panzer IV is really the superior tank in terms of, tanking and taking shells, and just that big gun is just so powerful. It's definitely the more powerful tank. It definitely is the better quote-unquote sniper tank between the two. I mean, the gun is just amazing on that thing, and you can definitely feel the difference compared to the T-34. You can definitely feel it packs a little bit more punch. But the Panzer IV is also more armored, and because of that, it's also a slower tank. But it's also probably an easier tank to operate because you have the commander spot, which gives you extra access to the cupola, which is just so much easier to use than popping the hatch in the middle of battle. But again, it's fairly easy to have that backfire in your face. But just be warned of that again. Prairie dogging for days. So in short, tanking is awesome because when you roll up and you're rolling and you see your comrade over there and his T-34 rolling up these snowy hills, it's just like, yeah, this is World War II. Wow. Anyways, I don't have much more to add. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful, informative. Yeah, that's really a word. And hopefully you guys are trying this game out and giving it a go, because honestly, post-patch, post-update, whatever you want to call it, this game is amazing. This game is back. It is so much fun. In fact, I even had fun just playing in action mode, which I did not ever expect. There's now literally an experience that's there for everyone. And, it's just a great experience. So, on that note, I'm going to be pretty much mincemeat here in a couple seconds. And look at that! I just can't get over shooting tanks and having them blow up. It's just so epic. Bye.